What is a back burner relationship? And perhaps more importantly, why is everybody choosing this whole dating without commitment thing in 2016? Are back burner relationships healthy? What should you do if you're put on the back burner? And is there any meaning to being in a back burner relationship? We'll address all of this and more in this week's episode of the Single AF podcast. And I also tell my own back burner relationship story, which actually got featured in Vice's Broadly magazine. So there you go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Single AF podcast. I can't believe that I've already been doing this for a month now. This week, we're going to be talking about the second term from a series of definitions of 2016 dating terms. As you'll remember from the first episode of the Single AF podcast, we talked about ghosting and what ghosting is, what ghosting means, and what happens, what you should do if you're ghosted. And I told a story about being ghosted, so make sure that you check that out if you're not already familiar with that. This week we're talking about back burner relationships, which is essentially a relationship with a person that isn't really much of a relationship. You don't really see it being anything long term. You don't see yourself being with them for the long run, but for now, you at least have somebody that you can talk to. You have somebody by default, basically, so if you are ever, feeling ugly or unwanted or uncomfortable, unattractive, anything like that, or just when you're bored, you have somebody by default that you can text in the middle of the night or, call up on a Saturday afternoon and say, hey, what are you doing? Do you want to come over and Netflix and chill? Basically, it's kind of like benching, which we'll talk about in a future episode, but you're not in a relationship with somebody else. This isn't a person on the side. This is probably going to be your primary person, even if you only talk to them, once every couple weeks. You're just kind of like leaving them on the back burner, keeping them warmed up, but not really genuinely pursuing anything with them. And I think that a major reason why back burner relationships are becoming such a major thing right now is that people really are not dating to settle down. Dating without committing to somebody is a very popular option right now. And especially for people, like in my generation, I'm a millennial, I'm a busy person. I just graduated college a few years ago. I'm still working on getting my career set up. I don't necessarily have the time or the energy or I guess the drive to settle down with somebody. I don't have time to sit down and, evaluate people and get into a long-term relationship with somebody. That and, in my personal history, I've already been there and done that, and I don't know if I want to do it again for a while. But the gist of dating in 2016 and over the last couple years seems to be themed towards not being very serious about actually dating and forming a connection with somebody and being with somebody long term. The emphasis is more on let's just have fun and see where it goes. Now, is that necessarily a healthy thing? I don't know. I don't know that I can really see a value or a point in, being with somebody long term without actually pursuing a relationship, but a lot of people do it. And I don't know that that is a healthy trend just because there aren't a lot of boundaries then. Any healthy relationship involves setting very clear boundaries. And I think that's a reason why this is such a popular option to not get into a relationship, to just sort of keep stringing somebody along without any form of commitment, is that you never actually have to take responsibility for anything that you do or anything that you say because you can always go right back to, well, we weren't really seeing each other like that though. It's just, it rubs me the wrong way. I wouldn't want to deal with it. If I'm going to see a guy, longer than a couple months, then you better either be committing to me or, we're nothing. And you are nothing to me other than a booty call at, 2 a.m. when I'm a little bit drunk. That's just me though. Like, do not expect any form of commitment from me unless you are expecting the full commitment from me, if that makes sense. As I said, I'm busy. I don't necessarily have the time or the energy to put into a relationship, but I also don't have the time or the energy to sit around and be confused about the lack of a relationship and sit down and analyze why you haven't asked me to be serious about you yet. I've been through that a couple times, and it's incredibly frustrating for me. I cannot imagine something that makes me want to stab myself in the throat more than to feel like I'm being strung along by somebody who's just kind of using me in the meantime while he waits for something better to come along. I'm not necessarily gonna say that I'm the best thing that you're gonna find, but I at least want you to try and make me feel like I am. If you're not going to, then you can lose my phone number. That's how it works. So have you ever been in a back burner relationship before? Have you ever been put on the back burner before? If so, leave a comment down below and tell me your story. Now, the story about not my boyfriend, as I referred to him, when I lived in Albuquerque, we had seen each other for a couple months very, casually. We went on a couple dates, we had dinner, drinks a couple times. From there, the entire extent of our relationship essentially consisted of me going over to his house and then us cuddling while watching Bob's Burgers and Snapchatting every day. And I didn't have a problem with this. I did want more than that, and especially towards the beginning of this non-relationship, I wanted more than that, and I just kind of craved it. Now, I wrote about this guy before because the frustrating part of it is that when I moved to El Paso, as soon as I was moving to El Paso, that was when he chose to get serious about me and really pursue me. And it's like, dude, I already signed a lease, I already put in my notice at my job, half of my shit is already in El Paso. You can't talk me into staying now. That's not how it works. We did keep in touch for a couple months after I moved down here. We were, not talking nearly as regularly. I've been up there to see him, but I don't think that it's going to go anywhere. I don't see us being in an actual relationship. It's not that I don't like him, because I very much do, and I think that he's a great guy. And I think that dating him would be incredible. And being in a relationship with him would be incredible. But he also drives me fucking insane, because he will pull shit like not saying anything, not really pursuing anything, and then, all at once, several weeks later, after it's not relevant anymore, that's, when it'll come out. And it comes out in this weird and depressive way, and I am not about to deal with that. So, is that technically a back burner relationship? Yes, because neither of us, I think, was pursuing the other one in a serious manner. I think he may have been slightly more interested in me than I was interested in him, just because he'd never been in a relationship before, and therefore, because I was a person who was available both emotionally and physically and interested in him, he, automatically kind of latched on like, oh, this is the closest I've ever been to having a boyfriend. Cool, I can jump on that. Which isn't really how it works, and I honestly make terrible partner. So, I'm doing him a favor, and if you're watching this, Mr. O, then know that I am doing you a favor. But also just call me, because Now, I did want to go ahead and follow up with my first episode of the Single AF podcast. I had some great responses from it. A couple of you left comments, and then a few of you actually sent me direct messages on Twitter to possibly explain what happened with the guy that ghosted me in the middle of a conversation. And all of you very consistently said, he probably ghosted you because he was throwing out meeting his family that early to scare you away. And because you were not, you didn't react how you were supposed to, because you were okay with that idea, he didn't know how else to tell you that he wasn't interested, so he just kind of poof. It actually makes a lot of sense, and it sort of explained a lot of the things that happened, leading up to that, so I think y'all are probably right. Guess what, though? He's still liking my statuses on Facebook, and he drives me fucking crazy for that. Daniel from the Ace TV here on YouTube reached out and told me about a person that he had ghosted back in middle school or high school. He went out on one date with a girl, and because he was in his shy, awkward phase still, he didn't know how to follow up with her. He had no idea how to text somebody and say, hey, I had a lot of fun, we should go out again. So he just kind of didn't respond for a while. He didn't actually bother to text her back, and by the time he had worked up the courage, it had been so long, and it would have been so uncomfortable that he just kind of gave up entirely. Daniel, I think that's forgivable. I think that's okay. That's almost adorable. First of all, because you were so insanely young for it, and second, I mean, it's hard to follow up with people. And guess what? That means that eventually I'm going to be doing an episode about how to follow up with somebody after the first date if it went well, if you want to see him again, even if you're really uncomfortable with it. Worst case, just give your best friend the phone and make her do it for you. I don't know. If you want to see that episode, make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel or following me on SoundCloud, because guess what? I release a new episode of the Single AF podcast every single Monday. How exciting is that, though? I hope you all are having a fantastic week so far, and I hope that a unicorn poops on your forehead. Make sure that you subscribe. I love you all, and I will see you in a week.